What is up on a Thursday night? The bar was closed last week for the holiday, but we reopen on this Thursday, and man, oh man, we have a ton of football to discuss, and we have a number of great games this weekend. You want to talk about one of the best, I would argue, the best slate of games this NFL season, week to week, is this weekend. We'll get into it, but of course, my first question for you is, what are you drinking? I have a little bit of a story to start the show tonight. I was going to drink another beer, a different beer, but I am drinking a Baroque, a Vienna lager from Commonwealth Brewing. I know I had this beer a few weeks ago. My first beer I was going to have tonight was horribly flat. It tasted disgusting. 5 minutes before I hit the opening video, I had to find another beer. So Kelly helped find another beer for me and bring it up, but this is a Baroque. Was not my initial choice, but I deal with it, and it's a very good beer, by the way. 5.6 ABV Baroque. Cheers to all of you joining me on this Thursday night, or maybe you're joining me on Friday, Saturday, whenever. I appreciate every single one of you. All right, let's start with story number 5. Story number 5, quickly throw up some comments here. Howdy, crew. A Jacko in the fridge. That's like finding gold. Dropped a mini whipped cream vodka in it. Oh, man, LFG. Kelly will love that, Amy, as you know. She'll be all over that. What's up? What's up? Slingtown OG, swinging on by the bar. Mr. Magoo, Sam Adams Winter White Ale. Go Bengals. Got a Bengals fan in here. And by the way, Slingtown is having a long trail. It's a long trail ale tonight. All right, I appreciate you. Let's jump into story number 5. Mike Tomlin. The Steelers are 6-6. Aaron Rodgers is throwing his wide receivers under the bus in the postgame. I was only waiting for Aaron Rodgers to throw somebody under the bus. It's only a matter of time with Aaron, unless you're absolutely dominating the league. He's going to have an issue with somebody. He's going to complain about something. He's going to point fingers at teammates. He does it all the time. So what happened last week after the Steelers lost, fall to 6-6? Aaron Rodgers is pointing fingers and blaming his wide receivers for playing terrible, terrible football. Meanwhile, Steelers fans, at least some of them, chanting "Fire Tomlin," and those chants are starting to grow louder. And so if you look at Mike Tomlin and you wonder, does he have a future with the Steelers? I think that he does. The Steelers' reputation is that they hate firing coaches. They've had, like 3 their entire existence. You have to be one of the worst coaches, I feel like, to be fired by the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. I don't think Mike Tomlin is one of the worst coaches in football, and I don't think that this season or the prior seasons, last few seasons, have been all on Tomlin. The wide receiver position this year has not been great. I will tend to agree with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think you should throw your receivers under the bus in public, but I agree with the opinion that the wide receivers have not been very good for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. DK Metcalf has not been the alpha they were hoping he was going to be, and beyond that, you don't have much. I mean, they just brought in Adam Thielen to try to help out that wide receiver room. So not a lot at wide receiver. Jaylen Warren is a good back. I like him. But Aaron Rodgers is a 42-year-old quarterback who is declining as the season goes on. And he really is just the latest of the quarterback problems that the Steelers have had. And that's been the biggest issue. It has not necessarily been Mike Tomlin. It's been finding the right quarterback. In 2020 and 2021, you had a 38-year-old and 39-year-old Big Ben Roethlisberger. Then in 2022 and 2023, your 3 quarterbacks were Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, and Mitchell Trubisky. That is awful. Last year, of course, you were stuck with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I mean, any of those quarterbacks excite you? Of course not. But yet, Mike Tomlin, with Roethlisberger and Pickett and Rudolph and Trubisky and Wilson and Fields, with those guys, the Steelers still finished with a regular season record of 56-39-1 since 2020. But here's the problem. The problem is the postseason. The problem is that the Steelers have had 4 straight wild card round losses. And some of those games have not been close. The problem is that Mike Tomlin, as a head coach, has lost 5 straight playoff games. And I don't care what market you're in. I don't care who your quarterback is. You lose 5 straight playoff games. That's no bueno. As a matter of fact, in 6 of the Steelers' last 9 playoff appearances, they have lost in the wild card round. And that's been really the calling card of Mike Tomlin, finding a way to be above 500 in the regular season, getting to the playoffs, and losing in the playoffs. And a number of times, losing significantly, losing when you are the favorite, losing when you're at home. So that's the biggest issue with Mike Tomlin. Since the Super Bowl win in 2008, Mike Tomlin's playoff record is 5-10. It's not good enough. And when you watch him in the regular season, in the playoff games, his in-game strategy suffers. He's not the best in-game strategist. We're talking about 4th down, being super conservative on 4th down, kicking extra points when he should be going for 2, horrendously conservative at times. But the challenge for the Steelers is that this hiring cycle is not very sexy. I was reading about the hiring cycle just the other day. There's not these top prospects. Like last year, you had Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel, who we'll talk about later on in this podcast. But, when you look at it, there's not a ton of great options. So I think Mike Tomlin's going to hang around. But until they get much better quarterback play, it kind of is what it is in Pittsburgh. And I'm not sure they're going to make the playoffs this year. All right, let's get to story number 4. Let's talk about the Ravens and the Eagles, because both of their offenses are struggling. Philadelphia, they've scored 15.5 points per game their last 4 games. During those 4 games, they are 2-2. This Philadelphia offense is just not getting the job done. In the second half, you go back to the second half against Dallas. They start that game against the Cowboys. They go up 21-0. The offense is eviscerating the Cowboys defense. And then they fell off a cliff. 0 points after getting up 21-0, ending up losing that game against the Cowboys. That is an inexcusable loss. So what's going on with Philly? You start with the run game. You start with Saquon Barkley. The Eagles won the Super Bowl last year because of Saquon Barkley, because of that offensive line, because of that run game. The run game this year is 26th in success rate in the NFL. So in the bottom 6 or 7 teams. Not good enough. The Eagles' offense, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, because you have Saquon Barkley, the offensive line, the running backs, the Eagles have the 5th highest stuff rate in the NFL. They get stuffed at the line of scrimmage at the 5th highest rate with that quarterback and some of the offensive line. I know Lane Johnson is hurt, but that offensive line should be much, much better. And that run game should be better. Meanwhile, the passing game, they're averaging less than 200 passing yards per game. Not going to get the job done. It's brutal. I mean, look, Eagles fans, I understand. Eagles fans are going to be happy because they're winning, and you're just coming off of a Super Bowl. I say that, but I also watched the game last week on Friday, and Eagles fans were booing their team off the field, even though they did win that Super Bowl last year. But you're still, 8-4? You still have a chance, right? You're still in the thick of it. You still have a great shot of winning the NFC East. But watching the Eagles' product has been brutal. Their offense is painful to watch. It's like watching paint dry. It stinks out loud. I don't think anybody outside of Philadelphia or outside of Eagles fans actually enjoy watching this team play football this year. It is dreadful. And I would also say this. The Eagles' offense is the highest salaried offense in football. No team in the NFL is spending more money on their offense than the Eagles. And they're still 24th in yards. They're 19th in scoring for the season. And as I mentioned, the last 4 games, 15.5 points per game. They have a lack of creativity in the passing game. It's just not good. Meanwhile, the Ravens are another team that have not been able to run the football consistently. They're 27th in success rate. I just told you Philadelphia was 26th. It's not a coincidence. Derrick Henry has had only 4 games of 100 or more yards on the ground. He's had 9 games of having 20 carries or less. So he's not running the football as much, and he has not been as productive consistently. But the biggest issue really is Lamar Jackson. I don't think Lamar Jackson's healthy. He did not practice today. And when you go back to, November 9th, what he has done, he has been bad. November 9th at Minnesota, 176 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, completion percentage 58.6. The next week against the Browns in Cleveland, 56% completion rate, 193 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The next week against the Jets, 56.5 completion percentage, 153 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. And then last week against Cincinnati on Thanksgiving, 53.1% completion rate, 246 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. In the last 4 games, Lamar Jackson, these are his totals, right? He has averaged a completion rate of 56.05%. That's woeful. He's averaging 192 passing yards a game. He has only 1 touchdown in his last 4 games to go along with 3 picks. His passer rating the last month has been 69.4. That would tie him for the second worst passer rating in football with Shedeur Sanders, only ahead of J.J. McCarthy. That's how bad Lamar Jackson has been over the last month. Again, I don't think it's Lamar Jackson forgetting how to play football. It's Lamar Jackson not being healthy. His ankle is not healthy. Somehow, some way, the Ravens are still 3-1 over those 4 games. But Lamar Jackson needs to be better if the Ravens want to win this division and if they want to find a way in the playoffs, because he has been bad the last month. All right, what are you drinking? Let me know on this Thursday night. Always appreciate you. Don't forget to click that thumbs up as you watch the live stream, even if you watch on demand. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Give us that like. Helps us with the algorithm. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like as well. Love seeing those thumbs up. Don't forget to comment. Let me know how you feel about this weekend's slate of games, which is just absolutely tremendous. And don't forget to subscribe. Nelson Lloyd, 4449, a $20 super chat. Thank you, Nelson. What's up, Nick? It's been a long time. Finally caught the show. Thank you. Happy holidays down in Georgia. Drinking some Crown Apple and Coke Zero. I'm not a liquor guy, as many people who know me. I've said this publicly plenty of times. I don't drink, hard liquor. I'm a beer guy. I'll take the occasional shot. But Crown Apple, I think Kelly would like that, would enjoy that with some Coke Zero. I don't know if Kelly would like it with the Coke Zero, though. Thank you, Nelson. And I appreciate the $20 super chat. Can't say enough about the generosity from all of you who continue to find a way to drop a little bit of cash in the tip jar on these Thursday nights. All right, let's get to story number 3. The Kansas City Chiefs, one of my favorite movies. One of my favorite movies is My Cousin Vinny. And Marissa Tomei on the porch when she's smacking her foot up against the porch, right down on the porch. She's banging her foot, stomping her foot and saying, "My biological clock is ticking." The Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs playoff clock is ticking. I never thought we'd be here. We talked about them 2 weeks ago, but here we are. The Chiefs are 6-6. Whoever thought the Kansas City Chiefs would be 6-6? I did not. And that clock is officially ticking for them to try to make the playoffs. Here's some fun with numbers. If you want to know what the chances are that the Chiefs make the playoffs, Mr. Magoo says they're not going to make the playoffs. Well, let's look at this article from The Athletic. Jesse Newell wrote about the playoff chances of Kansas City. From The Athletic's playoff simulator, if the Chiefs go 5-0 over their final 5 games, so if the Chiefs run the table, okay? If the Chiefs run the table, they have a 98% chance of making the playoffs. Essentially, the Chiefs would need to win out and get a single loss from one of the other AFC contenders, like the Broncos or the Chargers, to punch their ticket. Currently, right now at 6-6, the Chiefs have a 37% chance of making the playoffs. And as Jesse Newell writes, KC has a couple of things playing in its favor as it tries to resurrect its season. For one, the Chiefs are playing a lot of other playoff contenders late. They can make up lots of tiebreaker ground if they pile up wins. Something else, the Chiefs' final 5 games are against AFC opponents. That looms as important considering the second playoff tiebreaker for the wild card spots behind head-to-head result is conference record. If the Chiefs finish 5-0, they would push their AFC record to 8-4, a mark that would likely be competitive with other teams in the race. So they're looking at having to pretty much run the table to have as good of a chance as they can have. If they go 4-1, I have those playoff chances. If the Chiefs finish the season 4-1, if they lose to the Texans this weekend, they have a 39% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose to the Chargers next week, they have a 43% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose to the Tennessee Titans, they have a 68% chance because obviously the Titans are out of it. If they lose to Denver, 53%. If they lose to the Raiders, 56%. So if they lose to Houston, that's the worst possible scenario. If the Chiefs lose this weekend, that is the worst possible scenario as far as finishing with a 4-1 record and not making the playoffs, because they could finish 4-1, but if they lose to Houston, they have a 39% shot of making the playoffs. They can stand to lose to Tennessee, and they still have about a 70% shot of making it. Now, what does this simulator think the Chiefs will finish? The Chiefs' likeliest end of season records, okay? Running the table. 17% chance. The Athletic believes that they have a 17% chance of running the table and finishing 11-6. How about 10-7? The Athletic simulator believes that the Kansas City Chiefs have a 37% chance of finishing at 10-7, and they believe that the Chiefs have a 31% chance of finishing at 9-8. So the Athletic simulator says you got a 98% chance of making it to the playoffs if you're Kansas City, if you run the table. They give them a 17% chance of doing that. Meanwhile, the other top 3, you look at 10-7 and 9-8, they have a 68% chance of doing that. So the Athletic simulator is telling us they don't believe the Chiefs are going to make the playoffs, which is why they have a 37% chance currently at 6-6. Oh, and by the way, their left tackle, Josh Simmons, was just placed on the IR this week. That ain't going to help. And their final 5 games are very, very tough. Their final 5 games against the Texans on Sunday. Then they play against the Chargers. Both of those games are in Kansas City. Then they're on the road at Tennessee. They should mollywop the Titans. Then they go back home to play against the Broncos in a very difficult defense. And then they finish the season playing in Vegas. So Vegas and Tennessee, that should be a chalk situation. But they've got to they have to win at least 2 out of the 3 against Houston, the Chargers, and Denver to have an outside shot of getting to the playoffs. They've got to run the table if they want their best chance. Very, very, very difficult. Linda King jumps in. I'd love to see the Bears and Patriots in the Super Bowl #rematch. You know, Linda, I was at the bar, my real bar, the Tailgate Sports Pub last weekend on Friday, watching the end of the Eagles-Bears game last Friday. And my buddy texted me and said, Bears-Patriots Super Bowl. And I literally walked over to another buddy of mine who said the same thing a second later. Let's talk about the Bears and the Patriots. Huge turnarounds. And you're never really sure if when you hire a new head coach, it's going to be actually something that works. And cheers, by the way. Need another sip of my drink, the Baroque. You never really know if it's going to work out or not, right? Well, for Chicago and New England, their hires at head coach, they got it right. I think it's rather obvious. Both the Bears and the Patriots right now, heading into week 14, are the number 1 seeds in their respective conferences. It's amazing. It's an amazing turnaround. The Bears and the Patriots have a combined record of 20-5. Do you know what their combined record was last season? A little bit of trivia. Think about it for a second. Okay. Their record last season was 9-25 combined. So they're 20-5 this year combined after going 9-25 combined last season. Ben Johnson, my biggest question about Ben Johnson was whether or not he was going to be a quote-unquote leader of men. You don't really know how somebody's going to take on that role when they're just a coordinator. We've seen a lot of coordinators fail as head coaches, and the biggest reason, like a Josh McDaniels, is that they haven't been able to get that, vibe in the locker room where everybody is behind the coach, everybody believes in the head coach. Ben Johnson, leader of men. And it has nothing to do with him ripping his shirt off after the game last week in the locker room. He has the attention of these guys. He has them playing well. And not surprisingly, on the offensive side of the football, Chicago's been good. They're top 10 in the NFL in EPA per play at number 9. They're 8th in the NFL in points per game scored. And really, the strength of their offense is not Caleb Williams. It's not any of the receivers that they have. The strength of their offense is the offensive line. They made a concerted effort during the offseason to address their offensive line, and their offensive line has been very good. Their offensive line punished the Eagles' defensive front last weekend, which was a shock to me. I did not expect the Chicago Bears to run the football like they ran against the Eagles. The Eagles' defensive line is legitimate. They have tons of talent in that front seven, and Chicago pushed them around all day long last Friday. Shocking to see that. Meanwhile, with the Patriots, Mike Vrabel has completely reset the culture. It felt like dead men walking in New England the past couple of years with Bill Belichick coaching out the string. Gerard Mayo, obviously not nearly good enough to be a head coach in the NFL. Vrabel comes in, and it has been a culture reset. They had massive turnover on the roster, including pretty much all the captains from last year being gone. They hired Josh McDaniels, which has been a brilliant decision. And of course, Drake May has been one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. I would argue Drake May has been the best quarterback in football. I think right now, if you're giving out the MVP, Drake May should be the MVP of the league. And so you got the quarterback cooking, you pick the right OC, but it really starts at the top with Mike Vrabel and how he has these guys ready to play week in and week out. And what's interesting is when you look at the Bears and the Patriots, they've actually had a decent amount of common opponents this year, even though they're in different conferences. So let's look at it. They've had 5 common opponents already, and they're going to have a 6th coming up soon. So the Raiders played the Patriots. The Raiders played the Bears. The Raiders beat the Patriots in New England 20-13 in week 1. Meanwhile, the Bears won in Vegas 25-24. Both teams played the Saints. The Patriots beat the Saints in New Orleans 25-19. The Bears beat the Saints in Chicago 26-14. Both teams played Cincinnati. Both teams played at Cincinnati. The Patriots won 26-20. The Bengals won 47-42. Both teams played the Giants. Of course, this past Monday night, the Patriots hosted the Giants. They won 33-15. The Bears hosted the Giants. They won 24-20. And they both played the Steelers. And they were both home games against the Steelers. Of course, the Patriots lost to the Steelers 21-14, turning the ball over 5 times. Outrageous. Meanwhile, Chicago beat Pittsburgh 31-28 in Chicago. The Patriots still have to play Baltimore. That will be the second game after their bye week. Chicago played at Baltimore. Again, New England will also play at Baltimore. And Chicago lost to the Ravens in Baltimore 30-16. So when you look at the commonalities in the schedule, it's all pretty close. It's all pretty close score-wise. So that would be a fascinating Super Bowl if it ever happened. I would find it unlikely that both teams will get there, but I would also say Chicago has had the tougher strength of schedule. That is for sure. But both fan bases should be freaking elated at where these teams are. And the challenge, of course, is how do you build it from here? You got to continue to build it right from here. You just can't be happy about the one season. What are you drinking? Let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I am drinking a Baroque from Commonwealth Brewing. It is a Vienna lager. It is absolutely fantastic. Give us that thumbs up. Before I take a look at the incredible slate of games coming up this weekend, Mr. Snoopy sends a super chat. Thank you, Mr. Snoopy. Why don't J-Mac do bubble passes to Kyle Williams? I'm guessing Josh McDaniels here. I don't know. I mean, they have not run a lot of wide receiver screens, period. Like, they haven't run a lot of them at all. They haven't run a lot of them to Pop. They haven't run a lot of them to Diggs. It doesn't seem like it's a play that they lean towards. So, I mean, if you're not throwing a lot of them, you're not going to throw a lot of them to Kyle Williams, because Kyle Williams, of course, is, he's not getting a ton of snaps now that the other receivers are healthy. All right, let's get to story number 1. Let's wrap it up with the best slate of games, I think, this season. Last week's Sunday stunk. It was an awful, awful docket of football. It was brutal. This week, I think it's the best slate of the season. This weekend is loaded. Thursday Night Football, let's start with tonight. Dallas, 6-5-1, at Detroit, 7-5. Offensive coordinator Dan Campbell, shot out of a cannon to start, right? Since then, has not been very good. His fourth down decisions have not been very good. And, if I were Dan Campbell, I might not have announced that I was calling the plays as quickly as I announced it. But here we are. Amon-Ra St. Brown, according to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, is going to play tonight. That is huge for the Lions' offense. Meanwhile, Dallas's offense is just devastating. The Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott's playing great. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are easily the most dangerous wide receiver combination in all of football. They put up points. And by the way, Adam Schefter posted this week that Dallas is 8-1 in their last 9 Thursday games. 8-1 in their last 9 Thursday games going back to December of 2021. So Dallas usually wins on Thursday night. Another game, Indianapolis at Jacksonville. Can you believe we are here in 2025? The Colts and the Jags, both 8-4. What about the AFC South, man? We thought that division was going to suck. Here they are, right? You've got Indy, you've got Jacksonville, you've got Houston, 8-4, 7-5. All 3 teams have huge games this weekend. We'll get to Houston later on. Trevor Lawrence versus Daniel Jones. How about that QB battle? Is that something you would have been looking forward to a year and a half ago? Daniel Jones versus Trevor Lawrence? Indianapolis is slipping. They're 1-3 in their last 4 games. I give credit to Daniel Jones, who's playing with a fractured fibula. That ain't no joke. But if you do a good job against Jonathan Taylor, you slow that run game down, you put more pressure on Indy. Indy's offense is not nearly as effective. So this game is fascinating. Obviously, whoever wins this game leads the pack in the AFC South. Whoever loses the game might end up being tied with Houston if Houston can win this weekend. Here's another game that's going to be a lot of fun. Cincinnati. Yeah, I know they're 4-8, but Joe Burrow's back. And he's back and better than ever. At Buffalo, who's 8-4. So this is your Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen battle, which is going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. Cincinnati, as amazing as it sounds, at 4-8, they're only 2 games back in the AFC North. Cleveland stinks, and the Ravens and Steelers are both 6-6. Cincinnati is not out of the race in the AFC North. Now, they got to pretty much run the table, but if they run the table and finish 9-8, it's possible that they win that division. It's kind of crazy. But Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen, always a lot of fun. Buffalo, meanwhile, they're 2-2 in their last 4 games, and they're looking at the AFC East. If the Patriots beat the Bills next weekend after the Patriots bye, the Patriots win the AFC East. So the Bills have to win this game. They have to win next weekend to stay in that hunt for the division. It's kind of crazy. Imagine if I told you the Buffalo Bills even had a chance to lose the division title by week 15. You would have thought I was crazy, and you should have thought I was crazy. And I would have got myself checked. But that's the case. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, just talked about them. Both teams are 6-6. Lamar Jackson did not practice today. Is Lamar Jackson going to play? We'll have to wait and see. How will the wide receivers react to Aaron Rodgers throwing them under the bus last weekend? And can you believe this? I'm sure you can, because both guys have been at each of their spots forever and a day. but this is the 39th. This is the 39th time that Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh will coach against each other. 39 times. If you're wondering, according to Pro Football Talk, Mike Tomlin is 21-17 against Harbaugh, and the Ravens are 6-point favorites at Baltimore this weekend. Chicago, Green Bay, oh baby. Chicago is 9-3. The Green Bay Packers are 8-3-1. Whoever wins this game leaves the weekend as the number one team in the NFC North. It's as simple as that. If the Packers beat the Bears, they improve to 9-3-1. The Bears obviously fall to 9-4. If Chicago wins, they go to 10-3. Green Bay is 8-4-1. So this is for first place in the NFC North. They will play again week 16. That game was flexed into the Saturday night 8:20 kickoff. But this game is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. It's obviously one of the most storied rivalries in the NFL. Matt Schneidman of The Athletic wrote about that this week. He wrote, there hasn't been this much at stake for both teams since 2013, when John Kuhn stonewalled Julius Peppers to allow Aaron Rodgers time to find Randall Cobb for a game-winning 48-yard touchdown on 4th and 8 with 38 seconds left. The Packers were 7-7-1 entering that regular season finale. The Bears were 8-7. The victor won the NFC North, and the loser missed the playoffs. Since that day, the Packers are 19-3 against the Bears. Green Bay has won 19 of the last 22 games against Chicago. Ben Johnson, by the way, who spent 2019 through 2024 with the Lions, as we know, they split 12 games with the Packers during that time. The Lions swept the Packers twice in Ben Johnson's 3 years as offensive coordinator. So Ben Johnson seemed to have some things against this Green Bay Packers defense. The Packers, meanwhile, they've won 11 of 12 Chicago-Green Bay matchups since Matt LaFleur arrived in 2019. LaFleur's had Chicago's number. Johnson has coached well against the Packers as the OC. Somebody's got to give. Schneidman writes, again at The Athletic, you might have to go all the way back to the 2018 season opener to find a Packers-Bears game with this much pregame hype. That was Khalil Mack's first game for the Bears. And Jalen Johnson, by the way, being back, no doubt helps the Bears defense. He gives them a big lift. He is their best cornerback, so that should help them. Jordan Love versus Caleb Williams, and that Chicago offensive line against Micah Parsons in the defensive front of Green Bay, who just lost Devontae Wyatt, who's been really good this year. And then we got the two primetime games that are not tonight, Sunday night and Monday night. Sunday night, Houston 7-5 at Kansas City, who is 6-6. We went through all the Kansas City stuff earlier in this live stream. Houston's defense is absolutely freaking terrifying, devastating, dangerous. I mean, they are so tough. They're the best defense in football. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid have to find some answers against this defense. That is going to be a tremendous challenge. Kansas City's offensive line is dinged up. Again, their starting left tackle, Josh Simmons, is on the IR. So they'll be dealing with, at least one, if not a couple of backup offensive linemen going against Will Anderson and company, which ain't easy. Houston attacks. Houston blitzes. Houston is no joke. Now, on the other side, though, you've got Steve Spagnuolo, good old Spags, Kansas City defensive coordinator, against Nick Caley, who's the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. That should be a mismatch and an advantage for Kansas City. Spags should get the better of that matchup. So, fascinating game to watch play out on Sunday night. And then we wrap it all up with Monday night. You've got the 8-4 Eagles traveling across the country to play against the 8-4 Los Angeles Chargers. The biggest question about this game is Justin Herbert. Is he going to play? He has a broken bone in his left hand. He says he plans on playing. He was at practice today. I would expect him to at least give it an effort. Here's the unfortunate part for Herbert and the Chargers. We all know the Chargers' offensive line has major injury problems. Their starting tackles, both of them, done for the season. And we know that Philadelphia's defensive line is very talented. And we know that Philadelphia's defensive line is certainly going to be motivated after being pushed around by Chicago, as I mentioned earlier. Who wins the trenches? It sounds like old school football, but really, if Philadelphia's defensive line gives LA's offensive lines the offensive line just fits on Monday night, then Philadelphia will win that football game. I mean, this is a hell of a weekend. Starting tonight with Dallas at Detroit. But you got Dallas at Detroit, Indy at Jacksonville, Cincy at Buffalo, Pittsburgh at Baltimore, Chicago at Green Bay, Houston at Kansas City, Philadelphia at the LA Chargers. I'm drinking beer on Sunday, and I'm watching a ton of good football. And I'm sure many of you will join me in doing that. My Baroque, cheers to all of you. Don't forget to help us out. Hit the like button. Throw a comment in. And subscribe. Appreciate every single one of you. Enjoy tonight's game. Enjoy the fantastic football this weekend. Until next Thursday, 7 p.m. live, when we open up the bar again, we'll talk to you. Be well.